we'll go ahead and get started for tonight. Thank you so much for joining us today. As you know, we'll be talking about opportunities to study and play sport at American universities today. My name is Katie Sleeman, and I'm the Education USA Country Coordinator for New Zealand, based at the US Consulate in Auckland. Hopefully you can hear me just fine. We have a bit of a rainstorm happening in a lot of New Zealand today, actually, and it's just started pouring at my house this evening. Joining us tonight as well is my colleague Samantha Jackson, who is the Country Coordinator for Education USA Australia, based at the US Consulate in Melbourne. We've both grown up playing sports across various different levels, and we have actually been supporting student athletes in our region for a combined total of 18 years, so that's pretty cool. You might be curious about Education USA if you are new with joining us today, but Education USA is actually the official part of the US Department of State that focuses on education outreach and advising for higher education pathways. So we are your official source of information, always free and comprehensive advice that we give. So for us in our region, we do a lot of things, a lot of different services, and a lot of that involves working directly with US higher education institutions. We also work with local schools. Oftentimes that's with school leadership or careers advisors, career counselors as well. We try to share as much and amplify as much information as we possibly can so that everyone is hearing the exact same information across the countries that we serve. Sometimes throughout the year, we organize virtual group advising sessions like this or information sessions. As I mentioned, we also visit a lot of schools in our area too, also giving those information sessions and finding opportunities when travel is allowed, of course, to directly connect US higher education institutions with you and our countries. So historically, that's looked like road shows and fairs and expos, and we hope that we can get back to doing those things within the next 12 to 18 months, if possible. So I wanted to start with a little bit of housekeeping before we get too far underway here. But you'll notice that there is a Q&A box available for you. So feel free to pop in your question at any point throughout the presentation today. We are recording this session, so you'll be able to access it later on our YouTube channel that we'll tell you a little bit more about later on this evening. We'll try to get to your questions as quickly as we can and make sure that we save time at the end of the session today too. You'll see a variety of topics that we're hoping to cover today, so it's an ambitious schedule for us this evening, but I will start with giving just a quick overview of US higher education, talking a little bit more about the different sporting associations and what that means in terms of opportunity for you. We'll go in depth to both the NCAA and NAIA tonight and talk a lot about the recruitment process itself too. So things to watch out for, things you can prepare for, no matter where you are in this journey. We'll finish with a couple of resources that we really like to use as well. So what I'm going to do now is stop my video so that, and Samantha, if your video is on too, we might stop both of our videos so that we can really spotlight the content that we have for you this evening. So kicking off then with an overview, this is a very high level overview of US higher education, starting with why would you even be thinking about choosing the US if you know that we have such amazing institutions right here at our fingertips in both Australia and New Zealand? And to be quite honest with you, It's a little bit different for everyone. Everyone's got different motivations for wanting to head over to the US. And sometimes that's about campus life. Maybe you know someone currently studying in the US or playing a sport in the US. Maybe you have family over there as well. Um, there's access to a lot of incredibly elite institutions when you're looking at opportunities across America, actually more than 4,000 different higher education institutions, which is an incredible amount of choice. And just think about all the different pathways you can choose to study with that amount of choice as well. There's a whole lot of room, actually built-in room for academic flexibility that is also pretty unique to the US system as well. So that particularly can appeal to people who may not necessarily know exactly what they want to focus on for their areas of study for the duration of their undergraduate degree. But just as well, that could be because of the amount of research opportunities and internships and access to great experience that can really boost a CV and get prepared for the rest of your life. That's also appealing to a large number of people as well. The last thing I wanted to end with is, of course, sport, which is why you're here with us this evening. It is a very unique opportunity to be able to work towards a very robust and special education degree, and also play your sport at a high level at the same time. So again, incredibly unique opportunities that I think you can just pick whatever you want and be quite happy for a lot of people. So this is just a quick snapshot of the variety of higher education levels that exist across US institutions. And we always start with associate's degree programs that happen typically at 2-year community colleges or junior colleges, they're often called as well. So again, that's a 2-year associate's degree, which is a good entry-level pathway. And one of the reasons why we think this is a fantastic opportunity is because what we're seeing is a lot of students, especially from our region, taking up the opportunity to study at an institution for 2 years. And perhaps if you are finishing your last year of school now and just deciding to start on this journey, the research part of the process can be a bit faster. There's not as strict entry requirements in most cases. Sometimes some pretty cool pathways or special pathways into certain state systems that we can talk about later as well. But community colleges are great. It's a really special network across the United States. And they're great because they're usually right next to larger institutions or universities that have more degree offerings like bachelor's degree, sometimes graduate degrees as well. So what students will often do is pair them and do 2 years at a community college or junior college, and then transfer into the larger 4-year degree granting institution, so a university, and that's called a 2+2 program. So same amount of time to complete a bachelor's degree, but it tends to be a bit cheaper as well. So it's becoming quite a popular option. The next thing I wanted to mention, which is bachelor degree institutions or undergraduate degree programs that are what a lot of students think of when they're considering going for a university experience over in the US. And we've really seen quite a growth in interest in these programs over the last 10 to 15 years. It used to be that it was sort of common thought that the only way to study in the US was to go for a postgraduate opportunity, and that certainly is not the case anymore. There's quite a number of financial opportunities and of course really fantastic degree programs and offerings out there at this undergraduate level, and we're actually seeing over 60% of all of the students that we send over, at least from New Zealand, are going over for these undergraduate opportunities. Then, of course, you have your graduate, postgraduate, and professional degree programs as well. So maybe you are really ahead in the game and already have your eyes set on graduates and postgraduate opportunities, which is fantastic. There are so many great master's and doctoral programs in the US. But one thing I did want to point out too is that there are some degree programs that are different than what the pathways that we have here in New Zealand and Australia. And those include studying law and studying medicine. So if those are of particular interest to you, then talk to us, ask us questions afterwards if you'd like to, because that's a bit of a different academic journey if you're looking at going into the US system. So at Education USA, we practice what's called the 5 steps to study. So we try to simplify the process as much as we can. And we always start with researching all of your options. And what I like to do is combine it with financing your studies as well, because at the same time, you're thinking about all of these university choices that you have. You also want to be thinking about realistically what those financial opportunities are as well. So does that institution offer any type of funding that would be relevant for you and your situation? So we'll talk a little bit about that, and especially how that applies to sports a little further in the presentation here. The third step is completing your application, which happens typically in your final year of high school here. And again, we can talk about different situations in those regards as well, but it's really never too early to start the research process and get prepared, because there are some clunky bits to the application that we'll go over in just a second. Then you don't actually need to worry about applying for your student visa until after you've been accepted to the university and find out whatever funding you might be able to receive from that institution as well. And then step 5 is all the fun stuff about getting ready to head over. So here we are with the different inputs into the application for the university or community college, as it might be as well. So there's several here that we'll just quickly go over, starting with your school transcripts or your school results. And just to be entirely clear here, they're not looking for just the final year school results. They are actually looking for your last 4 years of study in your country. And if you are in New Zealand, they can actually go back to 5 years of study, as we have 13 years in New Zealand. So keep that in mind. And I also wanted to be clear that they're not looking to see if you are a perfect student academically, but it is great if you can demonstrate that you are challenging yourself in the classroom in terms of your course selection. And if you are able to show improvement in grades over time too, or consistent grades over time, I think that can really help with many applications as well. And the next thing we'll talk about is standardized testing, which has really changed a lot over the course of COVID-19. And we're seeing a lot of varying requirements now, but certainly less admissions requirements for standardized testing than once was the case. So is it still a good idea for you to take an SAT or ACT as part of your university application? It really depends on your ambitions and the institutions that are on your list. And we'll talk more about the sporting requirement aspect of that a little bit later on today. But for the most part, we still encourage students to at least allow the time to be able to take the SAT or ACT, which are both computer-based tests now, just in case that is something that the university itself or the program within the university that you might be interested in, if it's one of those that's required there. So you still can actually take at least the SAT in New Zealand, and we'll have Samantha chime in a little bit later on about the availability of SAT, et cetera, in Australia as well, if you are interested in all of that. Another really great part, actually, this is my favorite part of the application process, is the written essay or personal statements as well. So what's usually the case is that you'll have a time to share your voice and talk about something that you're passionate, or talk about your achievements as part of the application process. So this is something that that you can do in advance. So if you know that you'll have to be applying for a university in the latter part of your final year of school, guess what? In most cases, these prompts are available much earlier. So you can get these out of the way before you feel pressured and rushed at the end of the academic school year here. And have fun with it too. Really think deeply about the questions that you are choosing to answer and how those resonate with you. There usually is sort of a catch-all question, so you can talk about anything you feel like would be important to share to a US university. And we have much more fantastic resources about that written essay or personal statement on our YouTube channel as well. There's also a point in the application where you'll actually need to get your school on board with this. And actually, it's good to do this very early on. Always want to share your ambition or your intent to apply for overseas institutions early so that the school can help you out to the best of their ability. But these are reference letters or letters of recommendation. And typically for most US institutions, you're looking at 3 letters of recommendation. So 2 of those would come directly from teachers, hopefully recent teachers who can talk a little bit more personally about you and what you're interested in and what you've achieved in the classroom, or perhaps even extracurricularly as well. And then the 3rd one typically comes from a counselor or careers advisor, or someone similar in a similar position within the school. It can be a dean or someone else as well. And then actually, as part of the application, you get to list all of the fun things you do outside of the classroom as well. So that could be sports, and you actually get to list how many hours per week you have been able to participate in this activity over time. Now, there's a limit to how many you can list, so don't go crazy and join all of the clubs unless you're really interested and have time for all of the clubs and want to talk about them as part of this application process. But it is a good opportunity to shed some light on what you're interested in outside of school as well. Then at the same time, you also would be filling out some forms for any financial assistance or scholarships available at that institution as well. So I wanted to shift gears here and talk more about sports scholarships in particular. And you can see it can really vary between partial scholarships or full scholarships, depending on what that university has on offer and perhaps what that coach has access to, what the team can do that particular year. So a full scholarship can include literally everything. So tuition fees, travel, books, room and board, the whole shebang. Those are not super common. So I just wanted to be really clear about that. It's more likely that a coach would have access to partial scholarship, which usually includes tuition and fees, sometimes some room and board as well. I also know a few people who maybe we're a little bit late in the process of starting sports recruitment and got a really good deal on books, and they were happy with that. So it's a whole range of what we call sports scholarships or athletic scholarships out there. And usually they still are for 1 year, and those are renewable, but you'll have to demonstrate that you are still meeting all of the academic requirements required by that institution in order to continue playing, and of course, meeting the coach and the team's demands as well. So talking a little bit about that match between talent and academics, and what you need to remember is that we call it student athletes because you really are a student first. The goal is ultimately that you will complete your educational experience and come out with a degree in an area of study that's of interest to you. And that will set you up for the rest of your life in terms of whatever you might want to do for work or that next stage of life. So you also, in addition to being, a great sports person, you also need to be coachable. So you can't expect to come in and rule the roost and be sort of the biggest show in town. You have to be willing to accept advice from your coach when you're going over to an American university, which will ultimately help you grow as well. Keep in mind that your classroom performance, those strong academic grades, really help out with coaches who have to report on academic standards for their team as well. So classroom performance is very important, almost just as important as your success on that field as well. But ultimately, it's up to you to know the academic requirements that you need to meet in order to maintain that status on campus for you. So just a little overview here of the different sporting associations that exist across the US. This, of course, is focused on the formal process of becoming a varsity student athlete. And really the big picture here is that these sporting associations or governing bodies exist to serve and protect the student. So to create fairness, student well-being, and of course, academic success as well. So you start with the two-year colleges or the community colleges that we were talking about earlier, and those 2+2 programs. So we have both listed here anyway, the NJCAA, so the National Junior Collegiate Athletic Association, which is quite a large one actually. You also have listed here the California Community College Athletic Association. So there's some tinier West Coast associations at this level as well. And at the 4-year level, you have two pretty sizable opportunities as well. So that's with the NAIA and with the NCAA, which is by far the largest sporting association. So that's the National Collegiate Athletic Association. And we will take a closer look now. So starting with the NJCAA, again, that community college level, there's actually over 500 different member institutions, which is quite a lot, really, and that's spread over 44 different states there. Within this sporting association, there are 3 divisions. And what we're finding, at least from the New Zealand end, probably similar in Australia too, is that the NJCAA is becoming quite popular, especially with baseball and basketball players, but not limited to those sports by any means, but just quite a lot of interest there. You'll see some eligibility criteria that we'll gloss over now and cover a little bit more in depth later. But the basic requirement is that you must complete high school. And I guess in terms of scholarships, it's important for you to know too that they do accept talent coming from overseas, but only 25% of their scholarships can be given to international students. If you take a closer look at sports offered at the NJCAA, you'll see that there's a number of mainstream sports here, but also some pretty cool ones cropping up in terms of emerging sports there. You've got flag football for women. You've got clay target shooting. Competitive cheer is becoming quite popular as well. So a good range of sports available there if you want to investigate that a little bit further. Next up is the NAIA, which is a great athletic association, actually. It's comprised of mostly smaller colleges or universities. So oftentimes these campuses will have about 2,000 students in size. They are also often private institutions as well, and they will typically have a high level of sports or athlete participation at those campuses, which can be kind of a fun environment. In terms of eligibility, the deal is they've just updated recently. You have to have a 2.3 grade point average or meet 2 of the 3 requirements you see there. So minimum GPA of 2.0 plus a 970 on an SAT, or graduate in the top half of your class. And you can see, hopefully, a variety of sports there. There's more on offer at the NAIA than what we looked at with the NJCAA. Again, a lot of the mainstream US sports you see here, but with the addition of bowling, cheer, dance, some flag football again, which is pretty cool. And the level of play in this association is pretty similar to looking at the NCAA Division II, which we'll talk about shortly. And here we go, NCAA. So this is by far the largest association that we have across the United States. So there are 1,100, more than 1,100 member institutions. So a lot of fun opportunities here. 3 big divisions that we'll look at more closely. They have more than 500,000 student athletes across all of these divisions, and actually award more than $3.3 billion in sports scholarships every year, which is fantastic. There's also a great track record for student athletes from both New Zealand and Australia and going into the NCAA. We're actually both consistently top 10 sending countries into divisions 1 and 2, which is what they track for the most part. So just a little bit more information about these divisions. They are actually grouped into like-minded institutions in terms of their philosophies and sizes. So starting with Division 1, I like to refer to it as the big division because everything is big here. They have big budgets, they have big stadiums, big teams. This is pretty typical to what you see on TV when you're looking for university or college level sports as well. They have the biggest student populations on average as well. They also have the highest academic eligibility requirements that we'll cover more in detail soon. But of note with that, the student athletes at these Division I institutions graduate at a higher rate than the student body. So lots of services available to student athletes at that level and really across all of the levels too. And looking at Division II, those are the medium-sized institutions. So you have the average campus size is about 2,500 students. So what is typically considered a medium level, medium to small at the US system. In terms of level of play, it can overlap a lot with Division I. So Division I and II, or the bottom half of Division I can overlap with the top half of Division II teams. And your life is a little bit more balanced at that level. So they say that in Division I, you need to study and be an active student for 40 hours a week. But then on top of that, you have another 40 hours of training or competition as well. So that's an 80-hour work week essentially, versus Division II, where that's a little bit more balanced. But then if you really want to talk about balance, Division III is a pretty cool way to go. So they do call it the balanced division, where you have time to study, socialize, and play. It is the largest division with over 400 member institutions. And a pretty cool thing is that there's actually a really good sporting or competitive culture on these campuses too. So you'll see that that 1 in 6 students on these Division III campuses actually belong to a sports team. So that can be a fun environment if that's what you're looking for. So another fun fact is that Division III actually has the highest percentage of student athletes on academic aid. So not a sports scholarship, but they are on some type of financial aid or scholarship. Whereas Division I and II can actually offer scholarships for your sport directly. So quick look at sports available across the NCAA. There are actually 24 different sports on offer. You'll see things here like water polo, lacrosse. Emerging sport is rugby. What's missing that you might notice are things like netball, cricket, and men's rowing. So what happens if your sport is not listed across any of these? Well, that's not a problem. In fact, there's many sports that have club opportunities or intramural opportunities as well that you can search for as part of your research process. I know several students in the past have been interested in playing Quidditch, for example, on American university campuses, and that is an option too. That's not necessarily a scholarship pathway, but it is something available. At the university I attended, rugby at the time and lacrosse were considered club sports, but you could also get a scholarship to play and compete at the regional level with those as well, even though they were club sports at the time. So, so these opportunities can exist as well. All right, I'm going to pass it over to Samantha now to talk a little bit more about finding the right fit.
Thanks, everyone. Lovely being with you today. And if we can go to next slide, that would be great. So finding your fit, and Katie has introduced this so well, it really is about what you're looking for. If you're joining us tonight, you're looking for that athletic fit, that academic fit, and obviously that financial fit as well. So obviously athletically, you need to see how competitive you are, how good are you at your sport. Are there spots on the team to be recruited that you can be talking to coaches? Is there the ability that you will be able to play as soon as you arrive on campus? So it really is about identifying that athletic fit, identifying that you will be able to compete at a level that you want, and that there's things that you like about the coach and like about the team, and all that can be certainly researched and identified in that research stage. Now we're talking about that academic fit as well, and we spoke about how you're always a student first. And that becomes an important element of, do you want to study something in particular? Is that going to be important at the campuses that you're looking at in regards to being recruited? So that academic piece becomes also one of those elements that can help cut through some of that list that we're speaking about. So if you know what you want to study, then that can certainly help you shortlist your schools. I also think academically, the US is a fantastic model because you certainly don't have to decide what you want to study after you finish high school. What becomes really important is making that connection to that US college, and that US college or institution or university is going to provide everything that you desire and that you would like. And that certainly would help you with that academic piece as well. And obviously we're looking at that financial piece. I know we're talking to people in New Zealand and Australia tonight, so it's about that financial element. If you stayed in your respective countries, how much would that cost? Costing that and identifying how much that would cost is sometimes a really important exercise, because often there's a whole lot more scholarship or merit or financial aid available for you in the US as well. Next slide, please. So there really is an important element about really evaluating your talent. And that's both at an academic level and also an athletic level. And there's often questions that you can ask yourself in regards to what your talent is. So let's talk about your sport first. It is about, how good you are. What are your times? If your sport is measurable, like rowing, what is your ERG? If you're a tennis player, what is your UTR? If you've got those kind of elements that you can identify and match, you can see if your times and competitive elements really do match to the US colleges that you're going to be looking for. Now, that academic piece becomes really important. The academic rigor of your high school results can sometimes match to those universities as well. So there's very selective universities and colleges, and they will expect you to have some really strong grades. So it is about looking at what those grades do and matching to that school. And some of that can be very identifiable. If you do an SAT or an ACT, you will have a score. What most of the US colleges always do is that they list on their website the average mid-range of students that are accepted at their institutions. So academically, you could see if you have a match to those institutions as well. So it becomes really important in regards to making sure that you meet that academic and athletic perspective. And Katie and I will talk through in the next couple of slides, and if she can move to the next slide, it is also making sure that you're meeting the eligibility criteria of the respective associations. Now, the NJCAA doesn't have an eligibility centre. And in a lot of respects, you are always directly communicating with those coaches at those institutions if that is a pathway that you are interested in. They also don't require any standardized test results to form part of those admissions and those requirements. So they're really going to be looking at your 4 years of transcripts. Now, when you're looking at the 2 4-year institutions, which is the NAIA and the NCAA, they both have eligibility centres, and they both require you to register with them if that is the association that you are looking to be recruited at. And again, they have their own eligibility rules and requirements. And we talked about standardized testing a little bit before, and with the NAIA, it's going to depend. And we will talk a little bit more about that in the next slide. Now, the NAIA is a little bit different in how they manage their athletes that want to be prospective student athletes. And you'll see there on the screen that INCRED transcript evaluation. For anyone that is located at an international school outside of the US, you also need to create an INCRED account as well. So for the eligibility centre with the NAIA, you'd be doing 2 things. You'd be paying an eligibility fee to create a profile, and you'd also be paying a fee for that INCRED transcript evaluation. But they'll evaluate your whole high school record, and that is what will be used in regards to making sure that you meet that eligibility. Now, the NCAA also has its own eligibility centre, and what they have a little bit differently in the expectations in regards to what you study is that you need to do certain subjects from years 9, 10, 11, and 12. Now, they're known as the core subjects, and you need to do 16 of those. And Katie and I will unpack that a little bit more as well. And when you obviously do those 16 core subjects, there is a requirement that the NCAA will convert your grades to a GPA, and they will need to make sure that you meet that criteria. Now, if you're going to Division I institutions, you'll be required to do a 2.3 GPA from your 16 core subjects. And if you're going to Division II, don't tell me why, but they've changed the requirement, and that GPA is only 2.2. Now, what's really interesting, and COVID has certainly impacted this, as of January 2023 this year, the NCAA no longer requires standardized testing as part of their eligibility criteria. So that's great if you perhaps haven't done those tests yet. But again, Katie and I will talk a little bit more about why, importantly, some of those results can still be very important. So if we can go to next slide, please. And then sometimes it's about resources and knowing where to find information. You can access this obviously when we upload it at a later date, but these are some really helpful websites from each association in regards to how you can start unpacking their steps and unpacking their requirements. All these associations develop really good resources for students and families to use to help navigate the recruitment process and to help you identify programs as well. And we'll dig a little bit more into the NCAA as well. And that booklet that's on the far right-hand side of the screen, the guide for the inbound college athletes, that is also updated annually. So that becomes a really important resource that you should bookmark and stay up to date with those kind of information. And they obviously take you through the process and have some really good steps to help you with that as well. Next slide, please. So now we're going to talk a little bit more about researching. Where you can go to start some information, where you can start identifying some things you can be looking at, and how you can identify programs and sports. So this is the NGCA search tool. Again, you can put it in from a district or a region. You can pick your sport and you can search accordingly. And it will come up with all those programs that are available to you. And then once you hit those links for any respective university, it will drill down into their athletic department with more information as well. So that's the search tool that the NJCAA does. And then we'll go to the next slide, which is what the NAIA also provide. So again, they've given you a bunch of options. You know, what kind of learner are you? Do you like data, tables, Excel spreadsheets? Is that how your brain works, and is that what you like to look at? Then if that's the case, then that search tool on the left-hand side, which is sort of data-driven, Excel spreadsheet-driven, might be a great tool for you to use. Equally, sometimes it's about knowing where universities are located. You know, how familiar are you with the landscape of the US? Do you know where all states are located? Again, the interactive map is also a wonderful resource to help you identify perhaps regions that you really want to go to, and that can certainly help you identify that list of colleges that you can start building on and creating. And again, the next slide, which we will go to next, is also going to present similar tools that the NCAA also have publicly available. Again, the left-hand data series is a whole lot of tables and information. You can do it by divisions, you can do it by states, you can do it by regions. It is really a fantastic tool to help you identify programs and possible universities you can be looking at from an athletic fit. Again, the NCAA also has an online tool, and I know it's very small on the screen right now, but I think you can see all of those dots represent institutions. And if you look at the middle of the screen to the left, there is not as many dots within those areas. And I think that's really important to consider when you're looking at the US. If you look into the middle of the screen and go to the right, which basically is almost a Midwest line to the East Coast of the US, you'll see that there is a lot more dots and there is a lot more institutions within those environments. So again, if you don't like the cold and you're not going to cope in the snow, then you need to think about how some of those regions you either keep on your list or perhaps not keep on your list. Thank you. So we're going to unpack a little bit more about the eligibility centres, being the NCAA and the NAIA. I think what's wonderful if you are aspiring to be a student athlete, you today may have joined us and not even been aware of all the sport associations. Or equally, you may be joining us tonight and going, my aspiration is to go to an NCAA school. I think what's really good about the NCAA now is that they enable you to create a free profile account. We encourage all of our students and families to set this up as early as sort of year 9 or year 10 in your respective high schools. And when you set up a free profile account, they will generate a 10-digit ID number, and the NCAA Eligibility Centre will send you emails in regards to time timelines and what you should be doing and where you should be at in the process. The other element that then requires a little bit more work is that option 2 is the amateurism account. And the screen's a little bit small, sorry about that. And what's required now is that you need to do an amateurism account as well. And if you are being recruited and a coach is putting you on their active recruitment list, you need to turn your profile account into a certification account, and that often takes $160, often from your parents or guardians, and turning that into a certification account as well. So it's really a simple process. It will take about 45 minutes to set up a profile page, but what that will do is it will connect you with the NCAA. It will keep you informed of all that information. And importantly, Katie and I spoke about earlier, is how your schools need to be involved. And if you're aspiring to the NCAA, then your schools need to be sending your transcripts to the eligibility account on your behalf. So that is how you set up the eligibility. And as we say, I think it's really easy to start from a profile page and set that up. So if you haven't done that yet, perhaps the next school holiday break could be a wonderful timeline to do that for you. Next slide, please. So we're going to just summarize those eligibility requirements to study and compete at that Division 1 and Division 2 level. So importantly, you need those 16 NCAA approved core courses, and you may be sitting with us tonight and going, but what are they? Don't worry, we will unpack those for you shortly. And again, you will be required to have a certain grade for those core subjects that will be calculated by the NCAA. Now that 2.2, 2.3, it's about a C average in regards to your classes. So the eligibility torch is what I call the NCAA. Their academic rigor is not very high. So just because you meet the eligibility requirements of the NCAA, you need to equally make sure that your academic rigor and your grades will meet the requirements of the US colleges that you would want to apply to as well. And again, submitting your final transcript and proof of graduation is something that you will need to do after you finish high school, and they are required to be sent to the NCAA Eligibility Centre. And again, that's where your school becomes so important, because those documents can only be sent by school emails. So that becomes a really important reason of why you should be communicating with your high school teachers and staff. And if this is a new process to them and they're not very familiar with it, then please encourage them to reach out to any of our offices. Next slide, please. And again, registering with the NAIA is also a requirement. It will cost $160 for you to set up your profile account with them as well. And what they say with the NAIA is that often you don't need to set up your profile until closer to high school graduation. So again, it depends on if you're communicating with coaches, if they are communicating with you. And if you start communicating with coaches and they are really keen to continue talking to you and the possibility of being recruited, perhaps that's also a good sign to set up an eligibility account with these respective associations. Next slide, please. And again, NAIA is a little bit different. They will require you to set up an in-cred account so that they will evaluate your transcripts, and that has an additional fee. So not that I want to confuse anyone, but the NCAA, when you create your account, they do all of that with the one piece of information. So that's a little bit different here as well. Next slide, please. And again, I think we've explained this quite clearly as well, but just to re-explain it for you as well. If your GPA with your high school classes is above a 2.3, you would automatically qualify for the NAIA and you would be required not to do anything else. However, if your GPA is under a 2.3, you are then required to meet 2 of the 3 requirements. Okay, so that would be meaning you need a GPA of at least 2.0 You need to have a qualifying test score from the SAT, and you would need to rank in the top 50% of your high school class, and your schools will need to provide a letter to the NAIA explaining that as well. But again, a great opportunity to play college athletics. And once you know the intricacies with the eligibility requirements, I think you'll find it's very easy to navigate. Next slide, please. So we're going to explain and unpack the NCAA 16 core courses. And if Katie wants to come on to me online at any stage as well, come on back. So the 16 core courses, you need to do that from years 9 to year 12. Within that guide for the college-bound student athlete, the NCAA have an incredibly good worksheet to help you map out your courses and from what you're studying in a high school. They also have that on a web link that is there as well. But if you put in a Google search NCAA core course title worksheet, it will come up in your browser as well. So this obviously worksheet will help you map out the 16 core. So let's go to the next slide and we can unpack a little bit more and you can see more clearly about what those requirements are. That Division 1, what they're saying is that you need 4 years of English. So that means you need to be doing English in the last 4 years of high school. So I know New Zealand goes up to year 13, but for Australia, that would mean that you do English years 9, 10, 11, and 12. You're also required to do 2 years of natural or physical science. So that can be sciences in year 9 or year 10, and that can be classes like chemistry, physics, biology in a senior level of high school as well. You're often required to do 3 years of math. So again, it's really important that you don't look at dropping math in until you know what you're going to count for your additional 1 year box that you can see the second box from the end. Social sciences is also a requirement and you need 2 years of that. And that is classes like geography, history, psychology, economics, philosophy, all of those kind of classes of social sciences as well. If you're going to a religious school in any of your countries, you also can have that count as well in your core count. If you are doing any languages at your school, that can also count within the additional box. So again, mapping those out is going to become important. The sooner you do that in the start of your high school, senior high school, that is also really helpful in making sure that you stay on track to be eligible. Because if you don't meet these 16 core, you won't be eligible to play straight away when you're recruited. Thank you. Next slide. And again, how to plan that subject selection. It really is something that becomes easy to think in a framework is, you know what, in my last 4 years of high school, I need to make sure that 4 of my subjects are going to count as core. Now, not all subjects are going to count as core. If you're in your respective countries and you like physical education in your senior year of high school, that's not going to count as a core course for the NCAA. That doesn't mean you shouldn't be doing that course. You just need to be making sure that you would be meeting the 16 core in all those other categories through your other subjects. As a general rule, from about your last 4 years of high school, you're sort of doing about 30 to 35 subjects sometimes. So getting 16 is not that challenging and can be really possible and easy to map out. Thank you. Next slide. And again, you might say, what are the core courses? The NCAA have done a really good job at creating some resources to help families map that out. So this web link here will take you to their course title guide. Again, you could search in your Google for searching NCAA core course guide, and it would bring it up. Now on this first page, anything that is on that list would be rejected by the NCAA. So it's important to make sure that the classes that you want to obviously be counted towards core are not on this page. What you want to do instead is go to the next slide. And what the NCAA have also done is what they've said is these are all the courses that are approved in regards to course title. So it really is mapped out really simply. And what the NCAA has done is it's also given information for all the respective countries all over the world. And we'll show you how to find that information as well. So if we can go to the next slide, where I believe it is. What the NCAA has done is they have a great web tool in regards to international country specific information. So right now, that is the Oceania slide, and you'll be able to see New Zealand and Australia within that list. You would pick your country from that list, and then it would be able to break down further about what it would expect you to achieve as a high school student from either New Zealand or Australia. And what they also do as well is that you'll be able to review your country's forms. And what they have done is that the NCAA sometimes will review subjects in our own countries that may have different names or may have names that don't meet the criteria. So for instance, general math in Australia, because the word general is there, it would be rejected, but that subject has been reviewed by the NCAA, and you will notice on the Australian country list that it will say it's an approved course. So again, they do that for New Zealand. So you can have a look about subjects that may have different names and see if it also is on that list. And that can help you in regards to adding your core courses and making sure that you're doing the right subjects. Thank you. And again, there's international country specific information as well. Now that website that we showed you the slide before, that also comes out of this book. This book is about 400 pages. And you could look at your respective country's information, which is also within this book as well. It's also good to know that this guide is updated every quarter of the year. So they're updated quite regularly. And on the next slide, if you can go to that, you might be also with us tonight and you're an IB student, an international baccalaureate student. There is also an IB section within this booklet. So you can go to this booklet, go to pages 300 and 302, and I have just taken out the subjects there that have been approved as core courses within those categories. So again, it's an easy way to monitor and identify what your core subjects are. It's a really valuable resource. And it's very easy to access if you need to find that information as well. And we wanted to make sure that you knew how to find some of these resources. Next slide, please. And we also think if you're an international student and you're obviously looking at the NCAA, if you put into your browser NCAA international students, this is the web page that preloads very quickly. I often encourage all of our families that we're talking with that are aspiring to the NCAA is that you should bookmark this and visit this quite regularly as well. Everything is linked from these pages. Looking for specific information about your country, click here, and that will go to those Australian and New Zealand pages that we just recently showed you as well. And again, the NCAA have some great resources in stepping through the process and helping you with that information too. Thank you. Next slide. And again, the high school transcripts. This becomes a really important piece of information that needs to be provided. And when we are talking with schools that are communicating with our officers, often your high school transcripts could be nearly 20 to 30 pages long. We're always encouraging you to work with your high schools and that they can also provide you with a one-page summary transcript that will have all your grades from year 9 through to year 12. And again, the high school transcript or your grade report or those kind of things, this is the transcript that also needs to be sent to the NCAA and uploaded on your behalf. How do you do that? That ecprocessing@ncaa.org is the email that your schools would use in getting that information to the NCAA. Thank you. So in regards to standardized testing, I think it's a really interesting time right now. Katie mentioned earlier that COVID really has impacted the element of how important these tests are, and if they're also still required. Now, obviously, January this year, the NCAA no longer requires this as a form of eligibility. But what I think is really important to know is that it could be still very advantageous to have these test results for any number of reasons. A lot of US colleges may still require it for admissions, and if they do, then obviously having a test result is going to be very important so that you can obviously apply to those institutions. And what sometimes happens with standardized test results as well is it may not be required for the admissions to the particular universities that you want to attend, but sometimes the university may have scholarships or merit awards, and it is going to require a standardized test score for you to have to be eligible for some of those merit or scholarships. So it would be great that you could obviously have the opportunity to scholarship stack and get as much money as you can. And certainly that is a really good thing to highlight and share with you. And also, I think, sometimes it's also important to know that a lot of institutions have not required standardized testing for a very long time. Thatfairtest.org is a wonderful website, and they list all the institutions that have never required it or also may have currently not required it because that's their reaction to COVID. If you are with us and you're from a different country, not from New Zealand or Australia, and you have a different passport, it's also just important to make sure that you meet that English language proficiency as well. Generally speaking, if you're an international student and you've done your last 4 years of high school at an English-speaking institution and English instruction, you may be away from the English language proficiency and what those requirements are, but that's also something really, really important to identify when you look at the colleges you want to attend. Thank you. So connecting with US college coaches, I'm going to hand it back to Katie, who can move through some of this information with us as well. So what I'll do, I'll just go through the first couple of slides and then we'll get back to Katie. Sorry, everyone. It becomes really important. How are you going to be recruited? What are you doing to get on your coach's radar? That's a really important step in regards to building a relationship with coaches. And you can do it early. You're allowed to communicate with coaches whenever you want. But we also say it's about making the best impression. So creating that sports resume and providing footage becomes a really critical piece. And I think what's really good to know is, how good is your talent? Are you represented for a New Zealand or an Australian national team? Are you traveling overseas? Are coaches going to see you play? In most cases, coaches are probably never going to see you play. So how do you create that relationship? That becomes really, really important. And coaches are really busy. So how do you go about doing that? We're going to take you through some of that information in the next couple of slides. But it's really important to be organized. It's really important to be proactive. And it's really important to sort of research some options about, okay, what kind of college do I want? Do I want a really big college? Do I want a small college? Do I want cold? Doesn't matter where I go. So those things are really going to help you identify location first, and then obviously reach out to coaches. So let's go to the next slide and we'll unpack that a little further. The NCAA has a lot more rules associated with it. The junior colleges and the community colleges and the NAIA, They don't care when and where you communicate with coaches. That is completely fine. But the NCAA have a whole lot more different rules about that. Often it's not until your junior year of high school or year 11 or the last 2 years of high school that coaches can really communicate with you directly. So if they can't communicate with you, what kind of strategy are you using? A coach can talk to a coach. So having your current coaches involved in your recruitment process could be really valuable and really important. So let's go to the next slide and we'll talk a little bit more about how you can do that. And it's really about creating your sports profile. So you're basically you're creating a sports resume. You're introducing yourself. You're showing them what kind of talents and skills and information that is imperative that you share with them. And what's important is a coach needs to identify how good you are. And then you're not going to be able to do that by a sports resume write up alone. That's where that footage also becomes really, really important. But it's again, giving them information that is going to help them learn more about you. How can they contact you? What's your eligibility ID number? What's your sporting position? When is your year of graduation? Those kind of things become really valuable and important to put together and share. If you're with us tonight and you're in year 12, traditionally that's known as being very late to the process. That doesn't mean that this is going to be impossible, but it just means you probably need to be a lot more organized and structured this year, and making sure that contact starts happening no later than the July school holidays that's coming up as well. So let's go to the next slide, and what we're going to unpack and show you as well is that it's about footage. It's not about sophisticated footage. Sometimes you don't have to pay companies and organizations to do footage. So sometimes it's as simple as your parents are setting up a video and getting some footage for you as well. So there's two types of footage, okay? There's kind of a highlight footage, and the challenge with a highlight footage piece is that you're always going to show only the best things about you. Sometimes, coaches will want to know, what you're like in your competition environment. So maybe they want, one set of tennis. Maybe you can do 1/4 of basketball with a highlight reel. Maybe it's about, having a rowing regatta and making sure that you get that filmed. So there are wonderful ways to do that. And we're going to share some of our favorite resources a little bit later in regards to some examples that you can be looking at and where else you can be getting some information. So that footage is going to become a really important part where a coach can go, okay, let me see how good this person is. So it needs to be not overly long, and you never want to email it directly to a coach's email box. It's always good to sit on a website or somewhere separate that you can share a link with a US college coach as well. So next slide, please. And as I said, that recommendation letter from your coach is going to be a really critical piece. Times are changing a little bit as well. Yes, the coach can write you a letter, and yes, you can upload it and your sports resume, but don't forget coaches are busy and you want to make sure it's read. If you have a really good relationship with your current coaches and they're aware of your aspiration to go to a US college, maybe they can also be reaching out to a coach on your behalf. Maybe they can be sending the first footage reel. There are certain ways that you could do that if you have a really great relationship with your coach. If you don't, that's okay. That recommendation letter is going to become really important, because a coach will often reach out to a coach and is happy to say, you know what, how good is this Samantha? Is she really as good as what I'm looking at? I want to learn more about them. So involving your coaches is going to become really important and a really valuable, helpful way for you to build that relationship with US college coaches. Thank you. And again, it's contacting coaches. It's about trying to find your best fit and identifying programs that you think athletically are going to be perfect for you, and then you like the academic environment that institution has. And then it's about making contact with coaches. A lot of coaches and a lot of universities actually have online recruitment questionnaires on their respective websites. And a lot of coaches will expect that this will be the first point of contact. So if they have questionnaires, that becomes something really easy to fill out. And make sure that you fill it out completely. Make sure that you're ready to make that contact. Make sure that your footage is available. Make sure that the links work. Make sure that it is a professional piece of information, because that's going to be your critical first point of contact, and you want to make a good impression. It becomes really important in regards to how you do that. Now, in your research, you may say, but they don't have a questionnaire on their website. What do I do? It really is about identifying who they are, finding out their name and their email. And of course, when you send emails, you really need to put a coach's name in, because they want to see that you've done some work, you've done some homework, and you know who they are. They don't want to think that you are sending 400 emails out to 400 other college coaches. So it's really important that you identify who those coaches are and that you send that out in that information as well. And don't forget, it is about building the relationship. So yes, you can contact coaches. Yes, your coaches can contact coaches and build your profile as well. It really is a process that can take some time. So that's why sometimes starting, earlier is never a bad thing. Thanks, Katie. Next slide. And then I'm now going to hand it over, and Katie's going to talk more about the timeline and some more information. Thanks, Katie.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Samantha. So we'll dive in just quickly into the timeline and what you should be planning for in the last 4 to 5 years of your high school experience. And to be really clear, I know that we have an audience that's split between Australia and New Zealand. So for those of you tuning in from New Zealand, I'm talking about years 9 through 13 here. So we typically group 9 and 11 together. So generally speaking, that rule of thumb is the NCAA and US institutions would go back 4 years around the world. So typically years 9 to 12 for global curriculum paths. But in New Zealand, because of 13 years here, in a way, it's almost an advantage, because if an organization like the NCAA needs to go back for a core course requirement to year 9, they can do so, which sometimes does happen for students who are pursuing NCEA and they are short of a social science credit, for example. So that can happen. Did want to be really clear about that. So this timeline that I'm presenting to you now is a good framework, but it's also based off of best case scenarios and can vary based on your own aspirations. So yes, of course, the earlier is better for planning this journey for you. But if you are in your final year of school and just starting this process, as long as you are onto it and ambitious and ready to put in the work, you can still make it happen in many cases as well. So how we're going to present the timeline is working backwards. So bear with me here, but the 4th to last year of your high school experience, things that you can be doing early in your high school career. So things like talking to your local coaches, exploring that possibility with them. Do they know anyone who's gone over to the US? What do they think of your athletic ability? Is there anything that you can be working on together to help prepare you for this journey moving forward? Another great thing you can be doing at that year is researching all of the athletic associations that we talked about a little earlier in the presentation today. Make sure that you understand the differences and what each of them are offering and bringing to the table. Keep in mind, you should have an open mind at this stage and not be set on any one athletic association or particular division. It still is pretty early. You can also go ahead and get a head start if you do have, NCAA as part of your sightline there. Get a head start on that core course planning journey as well. Talk to your school about that as well, as early as you can, of course. Start keeping track of your both sporting achievements and your academic achievements, because both will come in handy over the next few years. Moving to the 3rd to last year of school. So this is when it's a good idea, if you already know, register with a sports association, at least, get that free account ready if that's an option for you. Um, Make sure you're focused on being a good student and start balancing your schedule, understanding how much time you need for studying and preparing for classes versus how much time you spend practicing or competing in your sport as well. That will be a good balance for of course your university experience, but later in life as well. This is a really good time to put yourself out there and in the sporting world and go to as many tournaments and competitions as you can, as long as they relate to your sports. And again, a great time to continue that research process, perhaps even start reaching out to a very wide net of coaches. Keep track of the responses that you receive. Then in the second to last year of school, so this is a good time for you to be narrowing down that short list. Maybe you've had a few back and forths with some coaches, perhaps even a phone call at that point. You can start thinking a little bit more narrowly about what you like and what you don't like, about the coach, about the institution, and the team itself. Be really specific here. So it's in a way, it's like dating as part of this stage, because you're not just going to go for the first bite, right? You're going to learn a little bit more about the team and what that campus is like, and see if it really makes sense for what you specifically are looking for. So keep those things in mind at this year and moving into the next year as well. This is a really, really good time to be communicating with coaches if it's possible for you to do so in your sport. You also, I should have said too, that it would be smart for you, if you do need to have a standardized test as part of that requirement for the sports association, or perhaps for the universities that are on your list, go ahead and do that at that time as well. Then in your last year of school, make sure, if you haven't done it already, meet early with your careers advisor or school counselor. Make sure that you are all set in terms of aligning your last year's courses to make sure you're not short of any core that you might need. This is a really good time to make sure early in the academic year that your sports profile is firm, ready to send out as that final communication before you're starting to really narrow your decision making as well with coaches. If you need to take a standardized test again, this is a good time to do so early in the academic year. And then you're going to want to start tracking pretty closely any university deadlines for applications. So it could be that a coach would ask you to apply early as early action or early decision to their institution. So make sure that you are tracking those deadlines and you have your whole application package ready to go to meet those deadlines that they are asking for. This is also a year that you could be in a situation where there'll be a little bit of a negotiation between coaches and different teams as well. So make sure you're staying in touch with those coaches, asking those tough questions, get the family involved, definitely get your parents involved. It's a big decision to go through. So consider offers, and don't be shy to ask for what you want as well. So then again as well, this is the year that you really need to be sending through all of your school results in addition to the university application too, just to make sure that you are compliant both with the sporting association and that the university has what they need from you as well. All right, quickly touching on a couple of our favorite resources here. So this is a really handy one that we often refer to, scholarshipstats.com. It's actually, I believe it was started by a graduate student in the US many, many years ago who put this really cool tool together so you could actually go through most sports on offer by the NCAA and select the sport, and then it will go through, each of the NCAA divisions. It will give you NAIA information and JCAA information as well. And you can go through actually state by state and see each institution that offers a team as part of that sport, and then goes even further into details about the admissions requirements to get into that university, how many scholarships they typically have on that team, what the amount of that scholarship typically looks like in comparison to the average amount of tuition for that institution as well. So I think it can be a fun resource, but honestly, one of my favorite things about it is that they have hyperlinks available for you. So you can just click a link. So say that you are looking at playing soccer in the state of Indiana, and you can pull up soccer, go scroll down to all of the teams in the state of Indiana, and click one, and it will take you directly to, for example, the Purdue University women's soccer team page, where you can take a closer look at and get that coach's name and contact details. You can look at the current team roster, see who's on it, see how many upperclassmen are on that team, so you know they're graduating soon and that coach is recruiting. I think it's a really easy sort of one-stop shop to be able to pull together a lot of information to help with that research process. The next thing I have is a shameless plug for our YouTube channel that we share between Australia and New Zealand. We actually have quite a large number now of videos that we always encourage people, if they're just starting out, tune in for our general information session and then explore your other interest areas. So that can be, we have lots of information on sports there too. So if you want even more content, that's a good place to go. So keep that one in mind. And we know it's been a lot of information, so we wanted to say thank you at this point for sticking with us today and absorbing all of this great detail about sporting opportunities in the USA. We do hope it was helpful for you. So thanks again for tuning in, and we hope that you'll continue to use these resources. Feel free to get in touch with our offices in Australia, New Zealand, or wherever you are tuning in from, so that we can stay in touch and help you on this journey. And with that, I am going to open up for some questions here.